Hey guys, what's up? This is Dingocrikey here with another commentary video, this time discussing a topic on Transformers 5. If you guys are interested in more news and commentary on Transformers 5, the Transformers 4 Age of Extinction toy line, or the upcoming Transformers Robots in Disguise cartoon, then check out my playlist and channel where you can also find over 20 of my Transformers stop-motion videos, some of which are previewed here. In this video, I'm going to be discussing a recent statement by Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, which would make it appear as though Transformers 5 and 6 may have a lighter tone than Transformers Age of Extinction. So this has actually been out there for a little while now, not too long, but maybe a week or two. But I wanted to do a video on it anyways because we don't get a whole lot of news on Transformers 5, and if this is going to have any effect on what the films might be like, it's definitely interesting for discussion. I mean, even if it doesn't have a huge effect in the end, we can't really know that now, so it just adds more to speculation on the films. So, with that said, let's get started. As usual, this news story comes from Transformers World 2005. It's a great source for a lot of Transformer news. I use it most of the time, but yeah, TF World 2005 is a great website. So the story goes that Peter Cullen was attending SAC Anime 2015. I'm guessing that's some kind of convention or something like that. I probably should know, but I don't know off the top of my head. And there was something that Peter Cullen said while he was giving a speech there, which really made it seem like he wasn't happy with the supposed darker tone of Transformers Age of Extinction, and he would like for Transformers 5 and 6 to retain sort of the lighter tone that he sees as being traditional to Transformers. Without further ado, here's the quote from Peter Cullen. Quote, "There's a sense that Transformer movies are going into a darker area. I think I brought the concern to the movie studio and certainly to the writers. Perhaps Transformers 5 and 6 movies will go back more to its roots. There was one line, which Optimus had, I did not want to say. It was my gut instinct and certainly my commitment to the character, not to say the line. But I was told to say, you can't fight the big boys. I think you all know what the line was." End quote. Being that this was from a larger speech by Peter Cullen, at least I believe it was, I haven't gotten to listening to the full thing yet, but, you know, the quote's a little bit chopped up. They probably cut out some extra things he was throwing in there. You could tell by the way the quote was written. If you want to see the original news story, I'll post a link in the description to the page on Transformers World 2005, and on that page they should have the video and a player so you can watch Peter Cullen's full speech there. I think it's about 40 minutes long, but if you have the time, it's probably pretty interesting. But the way I look at this quote, it definitely seems as though Peter Cullen wasn't happy with the darker direction of Age of Extinction, and he definitely wasn't happy with the way Optimus's character followed the direction of the film. And most importantly, he wants Transformers 5 and 6 to go back to the lighter tone that he believes Transformers is supposed to have. If you guys translated it a different way and thought he was referring to something else, you could leave it in the comment section below, but I'm pretty sure that's what he means. So to kind of evaluate what Peter Cullen said, my first thoughts were, was the last Transformers film really too dark? Well, I mean, there were some darker aspects of the film. I mean, let's look at the plot. The humans are against the Transformers in this film, so, you know, they're not just against the Decepticons, they're against our heroes, the Autobots. I guess lockdown in the seed, wanting to turn life on Earth into cyber matter or whatever, you know, maybe that could be considered kind of dark. Maybe seeing the little dinosaur at the beginning as he's traumatized by his whole Great Valley being destroyed or reformatted. And obviously we have the deaths of various Autobot characters. I mean, we see Leadfoot, well, we see most of Leadfoot's death, and we see Ratchet's death, clearly. And, you know, it's mentioned that a lot of the other characters were killed off in the film. So those are darker elements, but the main thing, and the thing that Peter Cullen seemed to be specifically referring to, was Optimus Prime's character. I think a lot of this has to deal with him being really angry in this film and willing to hurt humans. So when you look at that aspect, I could see it as being darker in the way that we're not used to seeing Optimus being like that, at least in the franchise's history. But as far as the movies go, it doesn't seem like a huge difference from Optimus's usual behavior. I mean, yeah, maybe you could consider it pretty bad that he actually does kill a human at a point, and probably kills a few other ones. But, with how ruthless he has been, especially in Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon, after he rips Grinder's head open, calling him a piece of tin, give me your face, we're gonna kill them all. I mean, Optimus is a pretty brutal guy in these movies, so not to say I disagree with Peter Cullen, I'm definitely not a fan of the more brutal Optimus. I have thought for a long time that he is way too savage in these films. I just don't like that side of him. I mean, I know a lot of people complained about Beast Machine's Optimus for being too spiritual and hippie-like, but I'd rather have that than this Optimus. But I don't really see how his character in Age of Extinction is that much different from his character in the other films. To me, if anything, it seems a little bit more natural, because in the other films he would go from giving some grandiose good guy hero speech in front of the Autobots and then just turn around and slash someone to death and rip all their interns out and stuff like that. And, it's horrible. I mean, who wants to see Optimus doing that? I mean, yeah, I went through a phase when I was a kid where I liked the heroes being really violent and stuff, but now that I'm older, and we're actually seeing it in a lot more kids' movies and cartoons. I'm not a big fan of it. I kind of miss the more noble heroes. I mean, think of him in Armada. I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but those of you who've watched the show know that there's a significant villain character who is going to die, and a lot of problems are going to be resolved by their death, and Optimus still is unwilling to let them go, basically because it's part of his character. And there were some darker aspects of his character introduced in that show, but I think they were handled way better than they are in the films. They were actually addressed as this is a problem with Optimus, and he realized it by the end of the show. Beast Wars Optimus is another really good example. He's, I think it's probably in episode 7 or something. It's one of the early episodes. Dinobot comes up with some plan, and he wants to blow up the Predacons' base. And Optimus is concerned that the Predacons will not be able to escape the base before it blows up. Like, he wants the base to explode so they can't be a threat anymore, but he doesn't want to kill them all. Now, throughout the show, he grows some more animosity towards them, and he might not do that. But, bringing up Optimus Primal kind of isn't fair, because whether it's Armada Optimus, Prime Optimus, even the Optimus from Robots in Disguise, the original cartoon, usually he feels a little less human. Optimus Primal was a way more human character. Like, you could relate with him more and kind of picture working under him a lot more than this almost God, Jesus-like Optimus that we see in a lot of the other ones. So I'm for Optimus returning to more of a noble self. Personally, a reboot would be great because there's been so much of a violent history with Optimus in these films, but for 5 and 6, I would want a lighter tone on Optimus's character. Now, for the film as a whole, I'm not supportive of the lighter tone. Because looking at Dark of the Moon, and especially Age of Extinction, because it's more fresh in my memory, I mean, Age of Extinction was way better than Revenge of the Fallen or the first film in regards to the regulation of humor, the way the villains were handled, character deaths, things like that. Than the first film. I mean, the humor is one of the big things that stands out. Age of Extinction had a lot less, in my opinion. It was still overflooded with it, but I definitely like the lesser amounts of humor that we had in Age of Extinction. I mean, especially because the humor in these films really isn't that great, in my opinion. Now, Hound did have some funny moments, and I'm sure there have been some throughout the other films, but basically I see a lot of the humor as either being really perverted and inappropriate, or just being really dumb and silly and the kind of stuff that you just roll your eyes at. I mean, it's whoever is writing it is just, I don't know, not my type of comedy, and I know a lot of other people do share that opinion. So, I mean, he might be referring to the humor by that. I know some people do think the humor gives it a lighter tone. Personally, I think it kind of does, but in a bad way. And I do think there's another aspect that maybe people get a little confused about dark and light tones. At least for me, I don't mind the story having a darker tone, as in the humans hunting down the Autobots, the villains being very evil, getting inside the villains' heads a little bit, and learning about how evil they are, seeing tragic things happen. I don't mind those aspects of a dark story for Transformers. What I don't necessarily like is having to see the heroes follow a dark path throughout that story or being influenced by those events. Now, there are some good stories where you'll have your heroes basically become an anti-hero or almost become a villain. But that's not what I want to see for Transformers. And in my opinion, you can have a dark story without having that happen. The Dark Knight is kind of an example of that. Now, you could probably say Batman's kind of an anti-hero, but I still think overall he's like a pretty good guy. He doesn't kill people, he doesn't have bloodlust, those things that Optimus seems to have. I know I reference Full Metal Alchemist a lot, but it's another great example. Great anime too, if you guys haven't seen it. Basically, it really demonstrates how in a dark world, characters can keep a certain amount of morality. I mean, you do see the characters do some pretty dark things, but, there's a few different hero characters throughout it, so they can kind of balance that out. But the Transformer films, maybe if we have a certain Autobot character, like if they were to introduce Ultra Magnus in the films and he did some darker, more questionable things, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I think we need to have those characters, those central Autobot characters who are the good guys, who we know are going to make what we consider to be the right decisions. So that's kind of my opinion there. I don't mind the dark aspects of the story, but I could definitely see a problem with the hero characters becoming too dark. Even if they're becoming depressed and that's considered darker, I don't really mind that. That happens in a lot of things. And I think there are great stories out of it. But I don't like seeing the heroes become, like, bad guys, especially like Optimus Prime. It's just not that cool. If they want to do that in some of the comics, I'm sure they have a lot more liberty there. They have a fan base that's probably looking for things a little bit like that. And you could always have them revert. Comic books go on so long that they can do a lot more of that kind of stuff. But for the films, this is supposed to be more for general representation of Optimus. And I'm not a big fan of that. So, if Peter Cullen's comments and maybe other things going into the creative process of the film have this effect of giving Transformers 5 and 6 a lighter tone, will it be good for the movie? Ultimately, I'm going to say no. No, I don't think it's going to be good. I think if anything, it means we're going to see more aspects of the first Transformers film and Revenge of the Fallen, and probably this new Robots in Disguise cartoon in the area of being more kiddie, because, we see the cartoon is going in that direction. So, I think that's what we're going to see, and it would make sense because that seems to be where they're taking the mainstream part of Transformers right now. I mean, they have explicitly stated that this upcoming cartoon is going to be much different in tone than Transformers Prime, so I wouldn't be surprised if Transformers 5 and 6 were going to pick up on that tone as well. Unless they do it for Transformers 5 and it gets received really poorly. Even that, though, I mean, come on, everything in these movies is received poorly. It doesn't really have an effect on the way the movies are handled, so. I also don't think it means we're going to see Optimus be any less brutal or violent. Now, they'll probably draw back the aspects of his character, like him having no problem killing humans. They probably will retract some of that and say, look, it's not as dark anymore. But I think he's still going to be, like, cutting guys down to pieces, ripping Decepticons' faces off, blowing their brains out, all these kinds of things with no remorse or, no afterthought, basically. I'm not a big fan of that. I gotta say it again. I don't like Optimus being like that. I don't like the main heroes and something like Transformers being like that. One other thing I've got to mention here is that in one of my recent videos, I mentioned that I thought it was probable that the fifth Transformers film may be called Faces of Darkness to kind of mirror that series of episodes that dealt with the Quintessons in Generation 1. If the films are going in a lighter tone, however, this probably reduces the chances of this name. Now, maybe they'll have a dark-sounding name and the film might not be necessarily dark itself, but if they're making that an emphasis that this film is going to have a lighter tone and that's what they're really putting out there, I'm a lot more skeptical that they would call the film Faces of Darkness, which I think is a sad thing, but they'll probably go with some name like Transformers United, or I don't know, Rise of Galvatron maybe. I'm not a big fan of that name, but maybe they'll go with that. Still, Faces of Darkness, they could use it. It's still too early to tell. If you want to hear my thoughts on that, you can check out my video called Transformers 5 Title Name, where I discuss a lot more of my thoughts on the various possible names for Transformers 5. But anyways, that wraps it up for this one. You guys can leave your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about this statement by Peter Cullen? Do you think it will have an effect on the tone of Transformers 5 and 6? Do you think any of the events are going to be changed as a result of this? And how are your feelings towards this matter, positive or negative? Do you want the films to have a lighter tone, or do you want them to keep taking a darker tone? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below, along with any topic suggestions you might have pertaining to Transformers 5, the upcoming Robots in Disguise cartoon, or just general Transformers stuff. Anyways, that's all I have to say for this video. If you haven't already done so, then feel free to check out my previous Transformers commentary videos along with my Transformers stop motion videos. That's it for this one. Stay tuned and have a good one, guys.